Hey team, it's Scott Keenan here with the Off Season, a summer sports show from the Knighted, and of course, the Knighted is Lincoln Ison, my good mate, and one of the biggest footy fans around. Lincoln, how are you, mate? You must be. It's like been like a roller coaster for you this week. You've had some highs and you've had some lows. Can we start with the high? Andrew John's following you on Instagram.
Mate,
Yay!
I could literally die right now, and I'm happy. I'm happy, pal. Yeah, I can tell you what. When that little notification came through, I must have triple checked it, mate. Made my week. Isn't it funny how life works? You can go through the ups and downs, you ride the waves. Now, thought about this, Scotty. I am very conflicted at the moment because I put together the circumstances that led to this happening.
Yep.
Now, that was one of the single greatest moments of my social media career, I guess you could say.
Yep.
Had the Brisbane Broncos not have won the grand final, I do not crash out in a lounge. Doesn't make SEN. I don't do a rebuttal video. And that's where Andrew Johns found me.
Yeah, right.
So, yes, the Broncos winning the grand final in a roundabout way was one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me.
Something good came from something bad.
Yes, let's just leave it at that.
I love that. And I didn't even know he was on social media, so I don't know if he's a new recruit to Instagram or what. But mate, he's obviously found a content creator that he likes. And speaking of which, I believe you've got some news this week as well.
Yes, just before we went recording, mate, huge shout out to the guys who put together the Rugby League Content Creators Award. Managed to pick up the Knights Content Creator of the Year. It was an absolutely stacked category. There's some very, very good nominees in there. I would not have been disappointed if I'd lost to some of those guys. They do some absolutely incredible work. But yeah, it's nice to be recognised for your work. It's been a while now. It's been 6 years I've been at this. But yeah, just again, a huge shout out to everyone who voted and also the people who put the awards together. It would have been a huge task tallying all those votes and whatnot. So yeah, huge shout out. Made my week. Just topped my week off even more, pal.
Congratulations, mate, and to all the others that were nominated in that category. You're right, there's some great creators around the Newcastle Knights and right across the rugby league universe. So well done, mate. Very exciting. I can't let you go, though, without the lows of the week. And the biggest one, the Newcastle Herald got it right with the headline that I saw. This photo will make Newcastle Knights fans sick. The biggest low, seeing Jesse Southwell already in a Broncos jersey.
Yeah. I described it as seeing someone drinking a beer out of a straw, mate. It just looks wrong. It feels wrong. Never in my wildest dreams, Scotty, truly. If someone would have asked me 6 months ago, Jesse Southwell would be playing for any other club than the Knights, I would have called you crazy. I would have laughed you out of the room. But here we are. We're living in a timeline where Jesse Southwell will be playing for the Brisbane Broncos for the next 2 years. And then the news that came out too, that she's rejected a 7-year contract, which would have made her, I believe, it would have been the longest, what do they call it? The longest female marquee contract to date. So
wow.
Crazy, absolutely wild.
And look, we can't begrudge her. She's made that choice, and we wish her well personally. It's a big loss for us and for the Newcastle Knights. It's a shame. I think just seeing it a week after she won Players Player in Newcastle kind of made it hurt that little bit more. But look, all the best to her for 2026 and onwards and upwards for our girls. We're right behind them for the upcoming season, mate. Let's speaking of which, let's have a look at what's happening in the off season. And bloody hell, it has been a big and busy week. So much to react to. So let's get into it. Danny Badiris is the big news because fans are all smiles this week with the news that he has been appointed assistant coach at the Newcastle Knights. How do you feel about that?
I think, mate, Justin Holbrook has kicked off his tenure perfectly. I don't think anyone anywhere was complaining that Danny Badiris was going to be brought back into the coaching ranks. And when the news dropped, it just, we needed some welcome news. And this was very, very welcome with the preseason literally starting, I think, the 3rd of November. Holbrook's got his ducks in a row now. And yeah, Danny Badiris is just a crucial piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, I mean, he is highly regarded in the game, around the club. He's been around the Newcastle Knights for a long time in a number of capacities, of course, around the New South Wales Blues. And you ever ask any former player who is the player that they would want to play with, it's generally Danny Badiris that they say is the most capped player in the club. And your Facebook page and your Instagram page, the traffic was running really hot throughout the week with reactions from fans. Sean King said, great move. Melissa Irish said, love it. He bleeds red and blue. Alan Milton said, there's more to Bedsy than dummy halves and hookers. It's more about training properly, preparing mentally and physically for the game and giving it your all. And Josh Walker, he said on your Facebook page, it's a masterstroke. This will fast track Justin Holbrook's connections with the playing group and the fans. And he said that it helps that Bedsy has an incredible footy brain as well.
Yeah, I think that last comment you just read out nails it perfectly. It's drawing back to our glory years, and we all know Bedsy, was an absolute elite talent. Premiership winning player for us, representative player. So yeah, not only is it going to be really fundamental for some of these young dummy halves that we've got coming through. We obviously got Sandon Smith coming through, Matty Arthur, Harrison Graham in the mix. Not only is he going to be a great mentor for those guys, but yeah, as that ambassador role, because a lot of people are kind of confused. We've got the defensive coach and the attacking coach, but I think Bedsy's just going to be that guy that's going to just float around and just wherever he needs to put his attention, he's just going to add that little bit of touch.
Maybe, or like he might be the 2IC. He understands the club, and that's exciting. The other two assistants were also locked in this week for 2026, and they're getting down to work already. Brett White and Steve Hales, and we know that Brian McDermott was released from the last year of his contract. He goes to the Gold Coast Titans. Blake Green, who was touted as a possible man to take over the top job before Justin Holbrook was announced, he's yet to announce his next move. Still, mate, some more changes in the coaching world that are that we're interested in, and it's been a mixed reaction this week to the news that former Knights head coach Adam O'Brien has signed with the Bulldogs as an assistant, responsible for attack. I think it was going to be very, very quick in my mind that another club would snap him up. We know he's a great coach. He had a great run at Newcastle, and he's got plenty to offer. He did a great job at Melbourne and the Roosters as an assistant. I think some of the mixed reaction followed our pop gun attack in 2025, and we were really failed to score points throughout the year. But I think going in as an assistant, he's probably going to be able to focus on that one thing and do a great job at the Dogs.
Oh, absolutely. I think, people tend to forget he was an assistant coach for a long, long, long time. Probably the best apprenticeship you could ask for, over a decade with Craig Bellamy, and then goes is a part of the Roosters premiership winning team as well. So certainly no slouch when it comes to being an assistant coach at all. And I'll make a comparison, say someone like a Trent Barrett, who, very, very mixed reviews where he was a head coach, but this season wins a premiership with Brisbane as an assistant coach. So it can turn around very, very quickly. I think people just lump, if you didn't quite get the job done as a head coach, you're going to be a lousy assistant. That's simply not the case. So, he brings an absolute wealth of experience. Phil Gould, he's forgotten more about rugby league football than most of us will ever know. So he usually hits these appointments, nails them. So I think they got a good one. I think he'll slot in. I think he'll do a good job there. And he left on good terms. So look, I don't think there's any ill will.
I agree, and that club's on the up. There's no doubt. They are building for the future. They've got a great head coach, and I think he's going to slot in there really well. He's a great man, and as you said, he left on good terms, and we wish him the best personally for next year in that new role. Another former Knights assistant, Willie Peters, surely, mate, now has to be one of the guys that's next in line for an NRL coaching job after winning all three big trophies in England this year, leading Hull KR to victory over Wigan Warriors in the Super League Grand Final on the weekend just gone. What an amazing effort.
Yeah, he was a guy that was linked, wasn't he? Before Justin Holbrook came to be. He is going to be hot property. It's going to be very interesting. We're going to be talking about another team coming along. Maybe he's going to be in the box seat to get that NRL gig. Huge effort because, it's dissimilar to the NRL. There seems to be like the four power clubs within the Super League. I think it was something in the last 20, 25 years. It's only been won by 4 different clubs, and he's broken that. What was the drought they were on, Hull? It was something crazy. It was over 20 years, right? He's broken.
Yeah, It'd be like if the Tigers won the premiership, or the Knights or Canberra. Like it's a team that isn't expected to be up there all the time and isn't expected to be winning. And like you say, in England, there's the power is really centered around a few key clubs. So to lift them up and to do it across win the minor premiership, win the Challenge Cup, and to win the grand final is incredible. Do you see him staying in England for a while now, or do you think there might be a pull to come back to Australia?
Oh, I don't know. I think there's enough of an appetite, eh? I think if there was a job to come about, his name would surely be on a short list. Have to be. And it goes back, circling back quickly to your point we're saying about Adam O'Brien, an assistant coach. He was a guy that was an assistant with us, and we had a pretty bad year in 2022. Goes across, and look at him now. He's absolutely killing it over in the Super League. So just goes to show you can sort of have one down year, one off year, and you can just completely reinvigorate your coaching career elsewhere. Yeah, it's going to be exciting, mate. I'm really, really keen to see Willie Peters return and what he can bring. I think he'd add a lot of value to a team in the NRL.
He's still pretty youthful. He's around 40, isn't he? He's not an older guy, is he?
Nah, he's definitely one of these like the newer generation of coaches, your Josh Hannays and all that. So he's definitely a little bit new school in that regard. So yeah, plenty of winters for our boy Willie Peters.
Yeah, absolutely. We may see him back sooner than we think. Now, a lot of players and agents this weekend might be, out with the family or having a bit of time away. But what they probably won't be doing is negotiating and talking to R360. They'll be thinking twice about it for sure, because the NRL has promised a 10-year ban for any player or agent that negotiates, talks to, or signs any form of agreement with an unrecognised competition. Of course, they're talking about R360. That came out this week, and we'll take a more in-depth look at R360 as the news continues to build and the talk keeps swirling over the coming weeks, mate. But this could be a flashpoint between the game and players' agents, or maybe even the players' union. I'm sensing storylines about restrictions of trade. But as a fan of the game, do you like this from the NRL?
Oh, I'm really torn, because you can completely understand where Peter V'landys's coming from, right? So when Peter V'landys stepped into the job, we were on our knees. COVID, it was touch and go there. People sort of have short memories about how much work Peter V'landys has done in the last 5 or 6 years to get rugby league to its absolute zenith. We've never been in a better position. And then here comes along this rogue competition that looks to absolutely pillage all of the great star players and just throw this ridiculous money. I can understand from where he's coming from, it'd be incredibly annoying. He's finally got us humming along. There's a TV rights deal just around the corner, and you've got to contend with this. Look, I'm no lawyer. I don't know. It'd be very interesting to sort of talk to someone who knows the nuts and bolts of the legalities of this, whether it's an idle threat. It's a bit of a, is it a bit of a bluff? If the push came to shove and it went to court, would it actually hold up? And it might just be just enough for a player to go, you know what? Nah, I won't chance it. You know what I mean? I'm happy to stay here. There's no guarantees of this R360 getting off the ground or doing what it's promised to do anyways. But what do you think?
Well, it has the chance to really be a fly in the ointment for the NRL and cause some problems. I think with this ban and the issues it could create for a player that goes away and goes and does this tournament, it might fall over in 2 years and then they want to come back. It's a problem if you're a young player. If you're someone like Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, you're at the end of your career, and it doesn't really matter if you leave league and head off to this competition for 2 or 3 years and make some good money, and you're kind of at the end of your career. I actually saw on Instagram I've just forgotten his first name, but Dan from What's New in the Castle, another Newcastle Knights content creator. He had a bloody brilliant point, and it was this: what if you're a fringe player? What if you are sitting on the edge of a top 30 of the NRL? And you're sort of in and you're out. You're not really quite at that level, but you want to go and try your hand at something like this because you can't get an NRL contract, but you might be young and you might be progressing and improving, but you need to make some money while you develop your skills as a footballer. He was sort of saying that those types of players, potentially could really get caught out here if they might get into the bottom half of a squad for R360 and go and play for a couple of years, but really want to come back and play at NRL because that's their game, but they'd be banned for 10 years.
That's a pretty valid argument because we're only sort of thinking of the big superstar players, really, aren't we? We're not sort of thinking of some of the lesser known guys or guys that might even be making their debut. Like, who knows? Who knows where they're going to go with this? And there might be some, young guys that are, yet to make top 30s and that they might have their eye on. So it's a pretty valid argument to make. So that's why I'm like, it's really hard to make an educated sort of stance on this because there's so many variables and you just don't quite know. So, I think it's going to be a wait and see sort of scenario.
Yeah, there's a long way to run on this, and we will keep an eye on it. And as it develops, we'll keep talking about it, I'm sure. As November 1 approaches, mate, there is plenty happening as players and clubs start to look to the future. The Panthers are in danger of losing 3 more star forwards, with Kangaroos prop Lindsay Smith, veteran Scott Sorensen, and young gun Liam Henry, all said to be likely to test their value on the open market come 1 November. They're both, all 3 of them, have that option to sort of take forward from 1 November. Manly centre Ruben Garrick, who a couple of years ago was talked about coming to Newcastle potentially as a winger. He was reportedly offered $1 million over 2 years by Manly recently, but he couldn't come to an agreement with the Seagulls, so he's available for 2027 come next month. And Broncos winger Selban Cobbo, you probably know already that he's off the Dolphins. Joining him, Newcastle young gun Sebastian Sewer. Sewer made his debut in 25 this past season, and he really is going to help bolster the Dolphins pack alongside another former Knight, Daniel Safidi. And it's probably good for them in the sense that they've just lost Jesse Bromwich, a veteran, previously of the Storm, and he's wrapped up at the end of this season. It's good for Seb Sewer, but it looks like there's going to be like a lot of change in our squad next year, mate. How is it shaping up for you?
Yeah, I think since Peter O'Sullivan's arrival at the club, I think it's no secret that the roster was a little bit out of shape. There were certainly some holes that we needed to address, and there's no one better to do it than Peter O'Sullivan. You see where the Dolphins are sitting right now. What's it now? Their third season in the competition. They've capped the most points. They, unfortunately, just a horror injury run the last 2 years. That they're knocking on the doors for finals football. And the great criticism of the Dolphins was they just weren't given enough time by the NRL. And Peter O'Sullivan, credit to him and Wayne Bennett, put together a pretty good team in next to no time without a big marquee signing either. So the fact that where they are gives me a lot of hope for what he's doing behind the scenes for us. So has been a couple of good handy pickups for the Newcastle Knights heading into 2026. I guess the big one when you're saying about some of these guys off contract is now you got this looming couple of expansion clubs in the mix. So that also throws a real sort of different sort of element to the open free agency market now. So going to be very interesting, mate.
Well, yeah, because there's another 1/2 clubs in there, and they're going to be fighting for those same players that are off contract, but they can maybe offer something different and something more because they're building from nothing, and maybe they can grab a player who's on the up or who's a star in a club and say, mate, we can pay you more over 3 years instead of 2 at the club that you're at. So it'll be really, really interesting. We've got Trey Mooney, Sami Solo, Peter Holler coming to the club, of course, Sandon Smith and Dylan Brown amongst others. So it'll be interesting to see how they start to settle in when preseason begins soon. A lot of players off on holiday at the moment. One in particular, Kalen Ponga, holidaying in Bali at the moment. I noticed on Instagram this week, I don't know if you can help me unpick this one a little bit, but he posted a photo in his stories of a new New Zealand passport with just the word helps. So I assume that means he's now a dual citizen, an Australian and New Zealand passport holder. I'm not exactly sure what it helps with. Is it playing for New Zealand in rugby league, or is it for playing with the All Blacks in the future, or maybe did you just need, maybe his Aussie one had run out and he got a New Zealand one to get himself off to Bali for the off season? I'm not really sure.
Well, I might have figured it out. Now, there was
Okay.
a quote that came out from Dylan Brown, and I hope this is why he did it. It would just put our minds at ease even more so and give us real excitement for 2026. Now, I'm going to quote Dylan Brown word for word verbatim here. I actually had a little training session with Kalen and a few of the boys, Bradman Best, Phoenix Crossland. I just want to make sure my body will be ready for another big year. So I'm assuming with obviously the Kiwi camp, I'm hoping, Scotty, that Kalen wants to do everything he can. He's going to have a quick little stopover in New Zealand, have a little bit of a training session with his boys there before jetting off, have a little bit of a holiday, mate. So let's hope that might be it. I might have connected the dots there and go, it's not as insidious as we think. Actually, it might be a real positive. You might have just gone, you know what? Little quick stopover, little layover. Go see our boy Dill Brown. They're the two big marquee players now. So let's hope that's what it was.
That mate, I love the way you're thinking there. And I mean, good luck to him. Dual citizen, get 2 passports. I've got 2. I've got a British passport and an Australian passport. I don't. I've just found it more intriguing than anything else. It was just popped on there. Little picture, just the word helps, and I was like, okay, let's see what we can work out here. But you're right. The Pacific Championships get underway this weekend. Dylan Brown and the Kiwis play on Sunday against Samoa, the men at 4 p.m. I'd be really interested to see how he goes in the halves for New Zealand. Does he continue to kind of step up and grow into that role? He's obviously going to come to our club as the key playmaker. And there's a lot of talk about that and his role in the New Zealand team and kind of how that gets his I guess post into preseason going for this new deal with the Knights.
Yeah, I think a lot of us Knight supporters, mate, are going to have a very, very keen eye on the Kiwis and seeing what Dill Brown can bring to that team. And I'm sure Justin Holbrook will have a very, very keen eye, as well as all the assistant coaches, to kind of get a bit of a gauge of where we're at. I know there's been a little bit of he's alluded a little bit in press conferences, Justin Holbrook, as to where he might play Dylan Brown, but certainly nothing cemented. But I know personally, I'm incredibly excited. He's ours now. I know all last season I was watching him as an Eel, but now he's a bona fide Knight. I think he's going to do well, mate. I really think he's going to step it up this year. I think he's going to have a really, really good Pacific Championship. And then the cherry on top is having our boy Phoenix Crossan also in the Kiwi squad as well. So let's hope those two boys have a really, really good campaign, bring that back, and have a really good preseason.
Yeah, agree. The other games for the men, Fiji and the Cook Islands at 4:00 on Saturday in Port Moresby. The game before that is PNG against the Cook Islands, which is a women's match. The other women's match on Sunday at 2 p.m. before the men play. It's the Kiwi Ferns and Samoa. So some exciting footy. I feel like we've just had the grand final, but it's coming at us again with the Pacific Championships getting underway. And of course, the Aussies play next weekend. The Socceroos come into that competition. And of course, our men play in England next weekend, the first of 3 test matches against England. The first one in London from 1:30 a.m. our time next Sunday morning. And of course, mate, you'll be live streaming a watch along for that. Have you got the extra coffee pods ready to go and your midnight snacks?
I will be, mate. Yes, the Australian bashers live stream, I've called it, mate. The Australians go there and bash the English. I'll be joined by the great Hainsey, Rooster supporters. This is the great thing, mate. We can all come together. We can put our club jerseys
club rivalries aside.
Yeah, we've got Joel from League of Inches. He's a Paris supporter. He was obviously here when we got absolutely pounded in the Dill Brown Bowl.
Yep.
Hainsey's coming over. It's going to be good, mate. We're going to be plenty to get excited about. But yeah, the alarm clocks will be set well and truly early for that. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people tuning in to watch along with us.
Yeah, I know it was a terrible result, and it would have been a hard watch as a Knights fan. But that live stream that you did with your mate, the Para fan, he's a good guy, and it was interesting to watch. You were having some good conversations, and I think that'll be great for this test match too. So I assume you're doing that on Facebook and YouTube, yeah?
Yeah, mate, all the same places. Yeah, we're all the Bathurst family last time. That's where I'll be.
Good stuff. All right. Ahead of that, there is a new chief in town. And of course, Paul Harrigan will always be our chief. But the new chief in town is, of course, the PNG team. They will be known as the Chiefs. The 2 options, as I understand it, were the Chiefs and the Serpents. Probably like the Chiefs out of those 2. The PNG Prime Minister Marape was pushing really hard for the Fuzzy Wuzzy Angels, which of course has that connection to all the guys that helped our troops in World War II. But I think the Chiefs is pretty bloody strong, don't you reckon?
Yeah, I like it. I really do. I think, as you said, the names that you read out, that one was certainly the better of the 2. And do you know what it's done, Scotty? I kind of forgot about this PNG bit, and I was kind of almost half thinking, is this not going to come to be? There was so much noise. We've got the Mal Meninga Perth Bears, all that's sort of been dominating the headlines. And we kind of forgot about PNG a little bit. And there sort of seems to be so much uncertainty to where the players live and all the rest of that. I kind of forgotten about it. But now they've got an actual name. We can call them something. Actually sort of validates it a bit more. So, as you said, there'll always be one chief in our hearts, mate. But there's a new chief coming to town. And, plenty to get excited about for the new, 18th, 20th team? 20th. Jeez. 20th team.
It'll be they're the 19th team, aren't they?
Is it
'Cause
19?
we've got 17 now. Then Perth will be 18, and then PNG will be the 19th team. But I've heard a lot of journalists and commentators this week talking about, our players going to go there, like that, it's not suitable and all those sorts of things. But have a look. We just got to remember what Peter V'landys and the NRL did when the game was stopped in COVID, and the world ground to a halt. Which game was the one that started first? They made it happen in Queensland. They moved heaven and earth, and they were world leaders in getting a national sporting code going again. And that was a mammoth logistical task. It was working with multiple governments, multiple agencies. The logistics of it all was crazy. So you can bet if there is one organisation that can pull this off for 2028, it is the NRL. They will make it happen.
That's a really good point you make, Scotty, because that was almost insurmountable, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like such trying times through COVID. And through just sheer determination and will, Peter V'landys just dragged us through. And you're right, he's a real trailblazer. So if there's anyone that's going to make it work, mate, it's going to be that bloke. And you know what? He's got the runs on the board. So we shouldn't really doubt him.
No, and I think there's also the administrative team there to help him, put it into action. Him and Andrew Abdo are a pretty formidable pair. Hey, we talked about Dylan Brown just a couple of minutes ago, and I wanted to bring this to the chat tonight as well. He's capped off a holiday to Fiji with some lovely news. Him and his partner Bella are actually now expecting a baby. So you know what they say about new dads and footy players. It kind of gets them really on the straight and narrow, really focused. Of course, the starting part of that, where he might not be getting too much sleep early in the start of the season with a new baby in the house, could be a little bit tricky. But he, along with Millie and Adam Elliott, of course, also getting to terms with a new baby in their household. Their little baby girl Gigi was born a month ago, and it did get me thinking a bit about gender reveals, which have really become a thing over the last few years. And I wanted to tell you about one which I just think is hilarious. I don't know if you've seen this. There's a great video of it. An Aussie driver used color-infused tires to do like a massive burnout with fishtails and everything. In his I think it's a Charger, huge fishtails and burnouts, blue smoke pouring out behind the car, and you've got a drone following it. Incredible footage. Nice. Until the tires explode and the car gets set on fire.
Oh, damn.
Just bursts into flames. Yeah. So what was meant to be like fun and positive and quite bogan, but also like a great piece of content, it went bad real quick. The funny part is the driver was pulled out unscathed. The car was a complete wreck, and he actually got charged with reckless endangerment and a fine of $1,000 and banned from driving for 6 months. So, I mean, gender reveals, it's the other thing that I saw researching that this week was the lady that did it the first time in the US. There's been a few of them recently that people are just going like way out of their way to do something ridiculous for gender reveals.
Yeah.
Another one I saw was, those, they're like these like streamer poppers where you twist it and like well, this guy had it round the wrong way and he twisted it and it blew right into his nuts, and he was like on the ground, like
He's like in the reveal.
Exactly. He's like, I've had one, I'm having one baby, but I won't be having any more. But this lady said, can you, for the love of God, just please stop doing gender reveals? I'm sorry I started it.
Yeah, there's some extravagant ones. People like go next level. I guess the most iconic one that I can think of was straight after the Broncos had won the wooden spoon, and Darius Boyd, remember?
Yes.
The footy, and it exploded, and it was kind of a bit weird. You just won the club's first ever wooden spoon. I was cheering. But it
was really weird timing, wasn't it? It just felt very self-indulgent, and I think it's an easy thing to get wrong when really, I don't know. It's nice to celebrate those moments, but you can really kind of go down the wrong path chasing views or whatever
Yeah,
it is that
I'm
we're
with you.
looking for. Yeah.
I'm with you, pal.
Hey, mate, let's go around the grounds and check out some of the other sports that we're watching this off-season. It is a massive weekend in the Premier League with Manchester United up against Liverpool, probably the big game. I follow Manchester United. I bleed red, but I've also been crying red tears for about 8 years because we are just horrible and it gets worse and worse. The interesting part is that we've won 3 games on the bounce at home in the Premier League, but we haven't beaten Liverpool, I think, since 2018. And United's only won one of their last 14 games against Liverpool. Liverpool are coming off 3 losses in a row, which is highly unusual for a team that won last year. They won the whole thing. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens if the United coach loses many more games. I can't see him keeping his job. Liverpool, they're cruising along. They won last year. They're settling in, and I think that they'll be fine this year. But that will be it's an interesting storyline if you are watching any Premier League this weekend.
Well, I tell you what, mate, we got a common enemy now. I very loosely follow the EPL. Newcastle's my team.
Yes.
I saw it all over the news. Who was the striker? Isaac?
Yeah, Isak. Yeah.
Right, and all the controversy surrounding that, mate. So they're my Brisbane Broncos now over in the EPL.
Really quickly. So the story was in the football off season a few months ago. He basically threw the toys out of the cot and said, "I'm not playing for Newcastle anymore. I want to leave. I want to transfer to another club." And it's unusual in football, but when that happens, generally they have to go because the club's like, "Well, we've got to get rid of this dude because he's not here to play for us anymore." And he got his dream move to Liverpool. It was like 100 and something million pounds. And so far he's struggling to settle in there a little bit. I think he'll be okay, but like yourself, left a lot of Newcastle fans feeling very dirty about the way that ended.
Yeah, it seemed like it. Was it like, did it break some record? Wasn't like the largest, I don't know the term, it was some, is it a transfer fee?
Yeah, transfer fee. Yeah. You could be right. It's certainly up there. It's very much. It was a big transfer, and there's a lot riding on it for them because they probably they want to follow last year's success with another big season. The really sad part of this season for them is Diogo Jota died in a car accident. He was one of their key players, a Portuguese man. Him and his brother died in a car accident in the preseason, and it's definitely affected some of their players. And I'm obviously not privy to like their locker room, but that's going to be a hard thing to get over because they were friends as well as teammates. And I think some of those players had played together for a number of years, and it happened right before the season started. So it will be a tricky year for Liverpool to kind of work through that. The Socceroos, mate, beat Canada 1-0 earlier in the week, but they lost to the USA in Denver 2-1. That's only the first loss under our new Australian coach, Tony Popovich, who you might remember used to coach Western Sydney Wanderers and took them to a title here in the A-League. He's doing really well, and he's unearthed a couple of really great young players who are doing really, really well. And the reason why we played friendlies this week and not World Cup qualifiers is because we're already qualified, and it's the first time in 3 campaigns that we didn't have to go through to like a playoff with a country in another region to kind of get there, which we've had to do the last 2 World Cups. So we're in a pretty good spot, and it's less than 12 months away now. I'm pretty excited about it. It's being hosted in Canada, the US, and Mexico. So it'll be a lot of fun to watch.
So how strong are the Socceroos, mate? As someone who sort of keeps a very keen eye, compared to the past teams that we've had, we better.
I think that the difference to the glory days is we don't have as many players playing in the top leagues. So they're playing in like championship clubs in England rather than in the Premier League, or they're playing in Serie B instead of Serie A in Italy. But there are some good young players starting to come through that are being noticed and that are being scouted and picked up by clubs and putting in more and more good performances, and we're starting to see that come through in the Socceroos games as well. So super excited about that, and the games this week, really good prep on the ground in the US for next year's World Cup. Hey, did you get to see much of Bathurst last weekend?
Unfortunately, I did not, and I'm very much regretting it because everything I'm hearing about Scotty was absolutely sensational.
It was unbelievable. A lot of the top drivers that were expected to do well crashed out during the race. There was heaps of wet weather. At one point, over the top of the mountain, there was like fog and cloud. The visibility was horrendous. Runner-up David Reynolds, I had a little quote here, which I thought was pretty telling about what the conditions are like. After the race, he said, "Who's in front of me? Who's beside me? I've got no idea. It was just scary." And then he added, with a laugh, "I've got 2 kids now. I've got things to live for." So he was obviously kind of, and some of the drivers did say they felt during the race it was a little dangerous. But as a spectacle, it was incredible. They still raced so hard through that rain and wet weather. And yeah, they reckon it was one of the best Bathursts ever. So it was exciting, and they've moved to this new format. Don't quiz me, I don't know a lot about it, but where they have like a final series now in supercars,
Yeah,
and you
that's
have to
what
like qualify to go through to it. So that'll
right.
be interesting. So some of the drivers, some of the younger ones who ended up finishing and placing well in Bathurst have gone through to these finals, and I think some of the more experienced drivers that crashed out aren't going through to those finals necessarily. So it'll be an interesting end to the year, but it's always such a great event. And there was something that happened on the day which I wanted to talk to you about. To me, it doesn't get any more Aussie than this. Chaz Mostert, who's been racing supercars for a long time, he goes out of the Bathurst 1000 about a third of the way through the race. He gets into mechanical trouble at the end of Conrod Straight. He jumps out of the car, uh, heads over the barricade and into the crowd, and cracks open a beer that one of the fans gives to him after he gets a hug from a few of the fans. And I just thought, bloody hell, how Aussie is that? How good is that at Mount Panorama? Okay, your day's over and you probably would have preferred to finish or win, but taking a beer as you climb over the fence from a fan, cracking it and having a bit of a chug, it just doesn't get more Aussie than that, does it?
Nah, mate, absolutely not. That sounds like Bathurst through and through. And I wanted to ask you then, Scotty, what would be the likelihood of that similar circumstance ever happening in F1? Like, would an F1
Oh,
maybe mosey on over and get a little glass of champagne or something
no
like that?
chance. No. No, I mean, they get up to their hijinks afterwards. You know, Dan Ricciardo was well known for his champagne shoeies, diving into the pool at Monaco after his great win there for Red Bull. But no, I could never see that happening in Formula One. It's just the access that we have to our motorsport drivers here, even though it's a very safe sport and it's so well engineered now, we've still got that closeness, which I really like. I think there's a real separation between Formula One teams and drivers, and we've been brought so much closer to it through things like Netflix documentary, Drive to Survive, and social media, but that at track experience, which you get when you go to those great tracks like Mount Panorama and Bathurst, it's second to none. We are so lucky to have a sport like that where we can get so close to our drivers.
I'd like to ask you also, Scotty, if you were to teleport all the bogans on Mount Panorama, instantly drop them into
I've
Monaco,
been one of them. Yep.
what would happen if you got the Bathurst crowd and just literally plonked them in Monaco at the GP? Talk me through that.
Well, I mean, firstly, I don't think sipping Heineken 0.0s or Dom Perignon on the French Riviera there is going to really suit many of our supercars fans. We'd have to firstly ship in all of our beer, just like Shane Warne did when he went to India and brought that pallet of baked beans with him. And look, I think they would probably take a very refined sporting event to really amp up the rock and roll, and they'd be partying all night.
Could you imagine, mate? How good would that be?
Oh, I mean, it would be unreal. And it did get me thinking about some of the Aussiest sporting moments. I'm interested to know what you think stands out for you. I mean, Steve Bradbury at the Winter Olympics sliding through in just the most Aussiest of ways. It reminded me of Cool Runnings a little bit. It was like our version of that, where all the competitors crashed out in front of him and he just skated through and got that gold. And he's literally built like a career and a life off the back of that one moment. Good on him, but so bloody Aussie. Bowling underarm to win a test series against the Kiwis. Bloody Aussie.
Yeah.
Any more for you? Massively Aussie moments in sport?
Aussie moments in sport.
Or just something that's just so Australian, like that would only happen to us.
Do you know one thing, Scotty, that I watched a great documentary on, and it was prior to my time, was the America's Cup.
Oh,
And for a
yes.
lot of seriously, I keep all the younger listeners out there, do yourselves a favor and get educated on the America's Cup. I heard my parents talking about it, and I didn't really grasp it. And it was a Bob Hawke that basically said if your boss, put it this way, for all the younger people, it ran really early into the morning, didn't it? And
It
people
did.
were basically trying to watch this yacht race, and they were going to be about 10, 15 minutes late to work. And even the Prime Minister's like, if you get in trouble from your boss today, he's basically a bum.
Your boss is a bum. He said that back then.
Yeah.
It's a classic quote, and it's just so Bob Hawke.
Yeah, mate, it's such an incredible story. Like, I'm actually disappointed in myself as an Australian. It took me like 36 years to grasp the actual, like, the enormity of that race. It was,
Yeah, well, it was also the engineering of the actual yacht. The winged keel was an Australian invention, and that was like part of that story of that team to go and take the Americans on at their race and to beat them. It was bloody huge at the time, and that was a very Aussie sporting moment. One other that sticks in my mind. And it's actually quite pertinent given what's happened this week. Swimming coach Dean Boxall celebrating Ariane Titmus's first gold medal in the 400 freestyle at the 2020 Olympics. You remember he was up and down and marching, and then he did that. He was gyrating on the side of the pool, and he went off, and it just caught everyone by surprise. He had that sort of the long flowing locks. He looked like he'd come straight off of Surfers Paradise Beach on the Gold Coast into the Olympic swimming arena there. And he nearly stole the limelight from her, but he was just so pumped for her that she got that gold medal she craved. And of course, she came back in 2024 and did what only two other Australian swimmers have done, women, and that's to defend her title. She won the 400 again in 2024 in Paris. She beat Katie Ledecky, who is a bloody legend swimmer from the US. Dean Boxall went off all over again. And then this week she went and retired at 25. An Aussie swimming legend.
I did see the news of that. Yeah. It's one thing we've been blessed with, isn't it, mate? We've had some absolute champion swimmers. You know, we absolutely dominate in the pool when in the Olympic arena. So, yeah, absolute champion.
100%. No, so some great Aussie sporting moments. I'd love if anybody's got some to chuck them in the comments or send us a DM on Facebook or Instagram and tell us about what, the most Aussiest thing is that you've seen at a sporting event, and we might run through some of them next week. Speaking of which, we've had a fan question come in that I wanted to run by you, mate. And this person who has sent this message to us is actually quite a proficient writer. And regularly gets their letters read out on Roy and HG's Bludging on the Blind Side. So we've been blessed here with a very high quality letter writer to the show this week. It starts, gents. When we think off-season transfers in the NRL is about the role the player, the role the player plays or the added value the player brings. For instance, I've heard that the giant fig tree at North Sydney Oval got supersized thanks to the unique irrigating efforts of Don McKinnon, who tended the tree and himself between training runs. Now the Perth Bears say they can grow fig trees at their new home in Perth, but do they have anyone on their roster as hydrologically gifted as Big Don? And if not, who should they be targeting? Big Nelson, perhaps, now that he has left the Storm. He says, I'm open to suggestions as the Perth Bears need players and a bloody big fig tree, not necessarily in that order. Yours faithfully, Roderick from Marrickville.
Wow, what an oddly specific question. Great question. I've never been asked if anyone's been hydrologically gifted before. Nelson,
the bigger you are, the more you can drink. I mean, there's...
Yeah, and it's none bigger than Nelson Asafa Solomona, is there? Let's be honest, absolute mountain of a human being. Who would they go for? Look, do you know who I think, Scotty? I think that they're going to nail someone from the Storm. I don't know who, but I just got a feeling there's a lot of moving and shaking at the Storm. Yeah, and I feel like maybe their marquee dude comes from them. I was probably a bit higher on Tino a bit early, but I think Josh Hannay might have done enough to try and quell any sort of doubts he had and maybe wanting to leave early.
I think go to Melbourne. He could go to Melbourne.
Yeah, true. But yeah, very true. Yeah, no, they're going to have a bit of cash to splash. Maybe a Munster or something. He seems like the kind of guy, and I think he'd be a marquee guy that the rest of the team could get around. And I
He
don't know.
also feels like the sort of guy that, would be happy to do some gardening and to water a fig tree if that was his role.
Yeah, I reckon he'd probably water a fair few fig trees with beers. I think that's. I don't know. I don't know. Can you feed?
4X.
Yeah, if you can give fig trees beer, Roderick, he is your man, 100%. That'll be the biggest fig tree on the planet. There.
Well, they got to get planting because they're playing in a couple of years, and they really need to find that connection between North Sydney and Perth, and I think maybe the fig tree could be a way to do it.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah, let's see. Let's plant the fig tree on the West Coast, mate.
Good stuff. We'll take some more fan questions next week. Just send them through via Facebook or Instagram to the Knighted's DM, and we'll have a look at those. Any question that you want us to answer, it could be as silly as that, or it could be a genuine footy question as well. We're happy to take any and all comers from you to answer over the course of the off season. Hey, mate, really quickly before we wrap up, I just wanted to make mention of two things really briefly. I went to a funeral this week, and it was emceed by racing royalty Neil Crompton. It was a funeral for the first person who believed in me and hired me as a journalist, Alison Drower. Some people watching this may know her from MTV back in the day with Richard Wilkins. They may know her from Triple M with Doug Mulray and Club Veg, or they may know her from sort of TV and radio more recently in some regional parts of the country. But she was an absolute legend. She always spoke so with so much fun, and she sort of broke the mold of news reading on radio and turned it into such a more conversational style that so many more people now have. And it, she would have fit in perfectly in an environment like this. She was just a lot of fun. She also, after working in radio for about 15 years, she did a lot of work on television, on RPM, on 10 Motorsport, worked with Neil Crompton, with Mark Scaife, broke the mold and, led the way for people like Jessica Yates and others in motorsport now. And she met her husband, co-driving with him in the Targa Tasmania many years ago. They had a son, and their son is Zach Bates. So Rick Bates is his father. Zach Bates is his son. Zach drove in Bathurst on the weekend and finished 10th. So incredible after his mother's passing about 10 or so 2 weeks ago, still had the courage to go and race the race that she would have wanted him to do. He smashed it. He's only 21 and he's on the up. He won Supercars 2 last year and he put in a great race. But I just wanted to mention her because of her impact on me, but because of her contribution to sport as well, particularly motorsport. So rest in peace, Ali Drower. And a friend of the Newcastle Knights. Many people will know Richard Jones, the former CEO of the Westpac Rescue Helicopter. There's been some information out there over the last couple of weeks about the death of his son, a young fella, Ash, 18, died in an accident on a farm in South Australia. I met him when he was a young boy. He came to the Voice for Mining family days with Rich when he was the CEO of the helicopter service. And in recent months, he went off to South Australia to pursue this sort of career on the land. And sadly, he died in an accident in the last few weeks. So just wanted to, I guess, share that with the Newcastle Knights community here, because if you're a fan of the Knights, you're probably also a fan of the Westpac Rescue Helicopter, and you would have seen or heard Richard along the way. He actually played for the St George Illawarra Dragons many, many years ago. He was a commentator on NBN very early doors when the Knights came into the comp. And so he's got that footy pedigree, that media pedigree. And he's also been a big servant of the Newcastle and Northern New South Wales community. So sad time for him, but just wanted to send big love to him and all of his family and friends who are having a tough time at the moment. So I know it's a bit of a somber note with those two mentions, but I just felt they were both pertinent this week, given the circumstances and both people who have had an impact on me in my life. So I just wanted to share that.
No, absolutely, mate. Good on you. No, you've done well, pal.
Thank you. Look, that is it for the off season. Thanks for watching and listening. We've had another blast again. We'll be back next week on Spotify, YouTube, and Facebook. Remember, battlers, my tip is always work hard and be good to your mother. We'll see you next week. Enjoy your off season.